Welcome, everybody, to the Building Aaronsburg podcast. I'm Thomas Aaronsburg,
And I'm Catherine Aaronsburg.
and today we're going to talk about something that I think a lot of people ask about, probably, and that is how we met each other.
Yeah.
And
where'd this all start? The
Yeah.
whole Catherine and Thomas. Where'd y'all start?
And I guess also the lessons that we've kind of learned along the way, because there's quite a few. Maybe we probably didn't know we were learning lessons, but looking back, I would say that we've learned a few.
That's probably putting it very lightly.
So let's get to where it started.
High school, man. That's where it all started.
So let's go through it kind of quick, though, and we'll kind of come back to things.
Okay.
Maybe. But very briefly, we met in high school.
Thomas was a football player. I was a cheerleader.
That's right. We sort of really met each other probably junior year. Had a couple classes together, junior, senior year.
Went to prom together.
But
weren't dating.
Went our separate ways for college.
Yeah.
Although I was still pursuing. She was playing a lot of good defense.
I wasn't playing. I was legit did not want to date you.
And then at sort of the end of college, maybe junior, senior year of college, reconnected.
Yeah. I finally relented to your...
Gave in. I twisted her arm enough.
Basically. That's exactly what happened.
That she gave in, and we kind of met at a critical point where we decided, yes, let's go ahead and go through with this.
Let's even start dating.
Yeah.
Because we're very careful, non-betting people. And we said to each other, if we're going to do this, it's either going to be really good or really bad.
Right.
Thank goodness it was really good.
So, that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. That's a very 30-second elevator speech for what that was.
Obviously there's a lot to that, and we will sort of unpack a lot of those things as we go through here. Hopefully.
If anyone cares.
So what would you say is the biggest lesson so far for you in all of this? Because I have a few things written down.
Do you have things written down for what lessons that you learned about dating somebody who didn't want to date you, pursuing someone who didn't want to date you?
No, just sort of lessons.
Okay.
Learned along the way.
I think probably the biggest lesson as a 21-year-old, we started dating when we graduated college. We got married at 23, so we probably started dating around 20, 21. We were very young. But I would still say, looking back, the lesson that I learned was that just because I have some vision in my head of the thing that should be doesn't make it A, what's best for me, or, well, what's best, or just sometimes my visions just aren't, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
So I know what you're talking about, but go ahead.
So basically,
let's get into the details of that.
So the details of that are, what girl thinks that she's going to marry the shortest guy in school? Like, I don't know why height had anything to do with anything. It's so stupid. But in high school, I dated a guy who was like 6 feet tall, and I thought that was cute. I was this little cheerleader, and it was cute. And then, you came along and super persistent, but you were this little shrimpy guy. And it's like, I don't know.
Get out of here, dude.
Get out of here. Which is so
You're not
dumb.
what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Well, and like you dressed in sweatpants all the time.
For those of you that are watching on YouTube, I'm currently dressed in sweatpants.
Yes, not much has changed. I've improved you a little bit in your clothing wearing capabilities, but in general, like, you just did not fit the picture of what I thought I was going to date and marry, which
were all very superficial, maybe.
Oh, 100%.
Might be the right word for it.
Yeah, but then when I started spending time with you, even when we weren't dating, I spent time with you, and I saw how kind you were to other people. I saw how you treated your nieces and nephews and how sweet you were to them. So, like, in my head, I was like, he'd be a great dad. He'd be just a person, a human, a Christian man, which, of course, those are the most important things. When you get married in the long haul of life, those cute guys and the tall ones in high school, those are usually the first ones to go bald. They get fat.
Yep.
So, like, what you look at, like, at 20 is not obviously what you're going to look like at 50. So looks go, but the things that are inside you are the things that are most important. And so I learned that lesson pretty quickly. It just took me a minute to get there.
Took some arm twisting for you to learn that?
Well,
or do you think you knew it and just the arm twisting helped?
I knew it, but the arm twisting Well, I don't know if the arm twisting helped. I really don't know. I think the thing that really did do it was when I was in California. I lived with my sister for a summer, and we were not dating at the time.
Mhm.
And I remember I came back for my mom's birthday. Her birthday's in July, and I flew back as a surprise for my mom for her birthday. And I saw you while I was in town to see her, and you sent me flowers when I got back. And I remember my brother-in-law said, "Why aren't you dating this guy?" And it took me, like, I
'Cause he's
started
short. You can't see
I
how
know, it's
tall
like
he
the
is.
dumbest thing, like, the dumbest. So I started thinking about it, and I was like, "Why am I not dating him? Like, what good reason do I really have?" And then,
So
you
I have
know
to thank Todd for our
Yeah,
marriage. Really?
I think so.
All
At
right.
least
Well,
for
if
the
he's
seed.
listening, thank you.
At least for the seed.
All right.
I know Christina's listening.
Oh,
Is his
okay.
wife, my sister. She'll listen. So, yeah, I would say the biggest lesson learned was that I learned to not have such a strict vision or such a strict idea of what the goal was or the thing that I thought that I wanted and stick so to it that I end up missing something really great. So, I don't know that that's necessarily the first time I learned that lesson, but it definitely opened the door to my ideas that I have now, which we've talked about in podcasts previous when it comes to kids and business and all that, that I keep my eyes open to opportunities, to things upcoming. Um, and that's part of the reason I don't make these huge goals. I have a overall umbrella thing that I'd love to do, but I got to keep my eyes open for the goals around, the opportunities, the doors opening, or else you could really miss something really good.
Right. Because you're looking right over it
I'm looking right
sometimes.
over at the 6 foot tall, strapping man that dresses in polo shirts, which is all the outside pretty stuff.
Right.
But once you get on the inside, maybe it's not so good. Maybe he's a jerk, Maybe
I mean,
that
obviously,
opportunity.
ideally, you'd like to find the tall, 6 foot, strapping young man that's also a great guy on the inside, but
Yeah.
not always so.
Those are really, but okay. And then on the flip side of that, you have to look into the side of yourself and go,
Yeah, so that's where I was going to go with mine.
okay.
Because I think I talk about this with my students when we do. I don't even know how it comes up. It comes up in my class. If you take my math class, we talk about stuff like this. But a big part of it is we talk about is you have to know yourself before you can try to look for other things and other people that you might think that you like
Yeah.
or that you want.
But knowing yourself as a teenager is
Oh,
tough.
absolutely. It's super tough.
And I don't even know if it's fair for a teenager to try to get to know themselves as a 17. I mean, you're going to change a lot, hopefully.
You
over
are,
time.
but I think that at your core,
Oh, sure.
you know who you
Yeah,
are.
you have your values.
Sure,
and
you
stuff.
might, I like this TV show or I like these kind of people. They're cool to
Sure.
hang out with. And now, 5 years from now, I'll never hang out with those people. But you know who you are.
Yeah.
And you need to take time. And I would say I spend a lot of time crying in my room. Joking, not joking.
Not joking.
No,
Sorry.
but I did spend a lot of time thinking about who I was as a person and what I wanted. This is sort of off topic, but coming back to the topic, I grew up with 4 brothers, and we grew up in a very religious family, and it was always sort of one of these things like, one of you is going to be a priest, and everybody thought it was me, including myself, for a very long time.
Ruined that one for you, too.
I don't know that you ruined it for me, but I would say it was definitely something I was considering.
Sure.
But at the same time, when you're thinking about that, like, you're doing a lot of, like,
Sure.
like, this inner work of who am I as a person and what do I really want
Okay, so
out of things.
my self-analyzation, analyzation, is that a word? Analyzation, is that a word?
Analysis.
Analysis. What is analysis? Oh my goodness. We need to start every single episode. I say some word really badly, and you guys all know what I mean. No, I was going to go a different direction with that, in that, who do I think I am that would be the person that I would, like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, who am I to think that I would, like, hottest, like, my perception of what the most attractive person is, like, is that someone who would be interested in me? Like, what am I, like, am I a 3 out of 10? Am I a 3 and he's an 8?
You're a Scranton 7 and a New York 6.
So what are we what are we doing that we can't even we all have these high goals of who this person we're gonna is physical attributes of somebody, and it's like we can't all marry 10s,
Right.
because we're not all 10s.
It's true.
You might have a 10 personality.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with reaching for a 10 if you're a 7
Well,
or
that's
whatever,
true. But anyway, I'd rather have it. No, looking back, lessons learned. I would rather have a 10 personality and a 3 on the physical attractive scale than to go the opposite direction with that.
Yeah.
And I tell people that all the time. Like, man, we got lucky. We got
did.
real lucky.
So I was gonna say, and that was the second sort of takeaway that I was gonna go with, and that will sort of lead us into the next thing that we're gonna talk about, is that a lot of times you don't really know what you want, and you just do kind of get lucky. You happen into the right person while you're at the grocery store, or out with your friends, or in our case, you just happen to go to high school with this person.
Yeah.
That and you got to meet them, and it happened to be the person.
It happened to be the person, and you got married, and then there wasn't some crazy weird thing that you learned about that person that you never would have known.
And everything just worked out.
And everything has worked out. I mean, for 14 years, who knows what might happen tomorrow.
Right. All right, well, let's take a break. There's 2 other things that we're going to talk about, and then we'll take a question from one of our listeners. Welcome back, everybody, to the Building Aaronsburg podcast. We're talking about how we met, and it sort of led to a discussion about relationships. And I think a question that comes up a lot, and I don't know if people have asked you this, probably people ask you this more than they ask me, is how did you know that he was the one? Or for me, how did I know
How'd
that
you know
she
that
was?
he was the one? Ooh, no.
Yeah.
Well, we all know famously my parents didn't think you were the one.
No, they didn't. A lot of people didn't think I was the one. A lot of people didn't think you were the one either.
Yeah,
So
yeah. We both had
ways.
Yeah, we had both going on. How did I know that you were the one? Well, you treated me kindly. Kind? You were kind to me. Forever and ever, like no matter what we did, you were always kind. You're the most patient human on the planet, and I'm the most impatient human. And so, if you could be
So
patient,
you needed the yin and the yang there.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know that it was that clear to me at the time, but of course, you being able to just handle me,
Goodness.
I mean,
Handle you.
sometimes really strong-willed people, as strong-willed as they are, they need for somebody to be able to just handle their crap, like, without reaction. I grew up in a very reactive household, as you know.
Yes.
And I was used to my anger or my whatever getting immediate reaction, and anger back, or some reaction to where we're yelling at each other or something all the time, and you didn't do that, which was great. Of course, I also saw the way that you treated your nieces and nephews, like I mentioned before. You were great with babies, and I knew that I wanted to have a family someday. So those were probably the 2 big things. But just how you treated me, and you've never been like a door, opening my door type of a guy, like that stereotypical romantic type. Not that, but we used to write notes to each other and letters to each other, and it was just
back in the day of sending a letter.
Yep. There's this thing called USPS.
Yep.
And I had a college mailbox, a PO
I do
box.
remember that.
So we used to write notes to each other, and it was obvious that, I don't know, we never lived in the day of dating someone we didn't know. Like, I knew you for a long time. And so you weren't a completely unknown person, which I think helped me tremendously. I've always said I don't think I could marry somebody that I was a complete stranger. Of course, you were a complete stranger at some time.
At some point I was, yeah, but you knew me. By the time we were married, we probably had known each other for 6 years, maybe.
Yeah, and I knew where you came from. I knew you had a similar side. You had almost the same number of siblings as I have. You were the same birth order as I am. And so I don't know that I believed at the time.
We'll have to talk about birth orders later.
Yeah, let's do an episode on birth order.
That's a good one. It's a really good,
let's do an episode on
interesting
that.
thing that we've looked into.
Yeah, so you're 3rd and I'm 3rd.
Yeah.
Which is right smack in the middle of 6 and 7 kids. And so I think that we were raised similarly in a lot of ways.
Right.
And so I think we had a lot of the same values, which sometimes that can be a clashing thing for couples. Sometimes that's not the greatest thing. but for us, it worked out well.
Well, we do have a lot of things like that in common, but you're right. I mean, I remember when we were dating, me coming over to your parents' house just to like, to pick you up, but I wasn't always like, "Hey, I'll pick you up," and then like we were leaving immediately. A lot of times I'd come in and I'd sit and we'd have
Yeah,
conversations, and it was almost always we were going to leave there because you were fighting with your mom or your
yeah,
sister,
yeah.
and then it was time to go because the fight had
Escalated to the point where I needed
escalated,
to
and I was
leave.
like, "All right, let's go."
Yeah,
That I
not
just it
great.
was. I don't know if you thought that that was awkward. It was definitely awkward at first for me. Like,
No,
wow,
I'm
these people are just like letting each other have it.
yeah. So from your perspective, were you like, what am I getting myself into?
No, I
Because
don't
they
know that I
tell
thought
you
much of it. I just was
you
like,
marry
this
the
is really
family.
interesting. This is not how we roll.
Wow, what a psychological study this is.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think much of it. I mean, like I think I was at first I was like, this is weird.
You must
They're
have
really getting after
you
it,
must have
but
thought something of it because your family, not your family, but your brother and some of our friends, guy friends, still tell
oh
stories
yes, yeah.
about coming to my
Well,
house.
I guess for me, it's sort of normalized after a while. Like after
Oh,
the first,
great.
like the
You
first time you're really like shell shocked,
talk
and
about
then
perspective. It wasn't like the fifth time you came over and you step back and go, "Wait a minute, this is normalized in my head now. This is probably not
yeah.
good. That I'm okay with this now."
But yes, for my brother and some of my friends had been over. They've only been over there once or twice, so their only
But they
memory.
will never forget it,
Yeah.
ever, ever.
So I think it scarred them a little more than it scarred me because
Yeah.
I had encountered it a lot more.
Yeah. Well, they got mad at you because we would leave them alone, apparently. I didn't know that that was the case,
I
but
didn't either, but apparently that did
we would
happen.
bring them all over and you and I would go off somewhere and leave them alone with my parents, which was fun times. Anyway, tell me the other things that is a reason why you love me, Thomas. Let me put my hands on underneath my chin and listen to the ways.
So for me, obviously through this whole experience, I was always the person that had the crush on you. You were not. It was not. Maybe at some point in high school, you probably had a little bit of a crush on me. At least that's as I remember it. But then definitely while we were in college, not interested. You wanted to go off, do your own thing. You didn't want a boyfriend, whereas I was still pursuing you the whole time. So I remember when we did finally get back together at some point. You weren't trying to, you know, karate chop me every time you saw me. And we're like, hey, are we interested in dating right now? I remember thinking, like, well, hang on. If we start dating right now, like, this is either gonna, because we had a good friendship, this is either gonna
Mhm.
completely ruin our friendship,
Mhm.
or this could be it, at 21 years old,
Yeah.
22 years, whatever, however old we were when we started dating. Um, so I would say that that was probably crazy to say. That was probably the point
You just
for me.
decided. You
Like
were
it,
like,
yeah, like it
it's
just
gonna
had to
be
be a
good.
decision. Like it has to be this, or it's just going to be a complete failure.
Yeah.
And you know how I am with things. I mean, like when I dive in,
Yeah.
I'm in. I mean,
Well, as my friend Heather and I talked about in college, probably we were probably dating then, but I remember we talked about dating and boys and whatever, and I remember telling her that love is a commitment, and I can't think of
you
the
said it the other way around. It's a choice
a
and then
choice.
a
That's
commitment.
right. It's a choice and a commitment. So once you make the choice and the commitment, that's it. Like
Right.
you just keep deciding to choose and commit to love somebody and
Right.
to stay with them.
So hopefully you make a good choice at the beginning because it makes the commitment part easier.
Yeah.
But
Of course, sometimes that doesn't work out. I'm not saying
sure,
that that's not the case,
sure,
but we were kind of more bound and determined because we did have a very good friendship, and I think we both worried that if it didn't, you know, end one way, then it would end real badly. You
right.
know.
So as alluded to earlier, there were people that didn't think that this whole thing should have gone down the way it did. Um, so at some point when we were sort of like coming to this decision, like, should we start dating? Because if we start dating, we kind of know where that's probably going to lead us. Uh, the two people that I really respected their opinion of, I was like, look, let me talk to y'all about what's going on. And we knew each other from high school, and then when you left to go to college, it like completely wrecked my world. So I went and saw my dad, and I was like, "Hey, you remember Catherine? We're thinking about dating." And He's like, "Don't do it, man. Remember last time? I mean, it killed you. Don't do it." I was like, "All right." So that guy says no. Let me go to the other guy I really respect.
See what he's gonna say.
The
Surely he'll
priest,
want to
the
agree.
priest that married us. I was like, Father, what do you think? Like, here's a situation where you think. He's like, and this is also the priest that thought that I was going to be a priest. So I'm sure there was a little bias there too.
A little bit. He was trying to pull you over to his
He's
side.
like, no, man, don't do it. It's a really bad decision. I was like, well, gosh, both guys, I really respect their opinion. They both said no.
And then what happened?
Let's go for it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what your definition of go for it is because I don't recall us. Did you talk to them when you and I talked about friendship versus dating?
Yeah, it had to have been in that time period.
Like we were thinking about it basically.
Right.
You guys, we're the most boring 21-year-olds ever. We're like,
we really are.
Trying to decide if we're
we
gonna.
Probably had some flow charts, some pros and cons.
What on earth
going on?
Looking back, it's like, what in the actual heck?
Most people just yes or no. Let's just whatever.
Yeah,
happens.
Thomas is
and
like consulting priests and dads, and I'm
right.
I was probably like, what'd they say? What are we doing?
They both said no. Okay, let's do it.
Seems about right. That sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you know, you just know.
Then why were you asking questions?
I don't know. I guess I was going for advice, maybe, and I wasn't expecting them to get a no.
Yeah.
It was more like a counsel me through this.
That still doesn't answer the question of how you knew I was the one. Is that not a fair question to ask? Because maybe there's never like a point. Because I guess your case, you thought I was the one since like high school. Maybe. I don't know if that's how you thought of things.
No, I definitely not in high school, especially. I want to marry this girl at 16 years old, 17 years old. I would say it probably started off as a crush. You were a really pretty girl in high school. You were a cheerleader. You were the homecoming queen. Like you were popular in my head. You're popular.
The word "was" is so prevalent in this sentence structure that I can't even work.
This was in the past.
You was so pretty. You was so popular.
No. You are popular still among the McGill-Tillman class of 2001. In the year 2001.
Look, this goes back to me not being able to handle a compliment. See episode about
5 love languages.
5 love languages.
It was the last episode,
actually. This is a direct
episode 9.
Link to that.
So that's probably where it started, but I didn't know you. You know, you were just some
object to be had. Yeah. I was the 6 foot tall.
Yes, you were.
Boy wearing Ralph Lauren.
Strapping young man.
Whatever.
Right. Yeah. But then as I got to know you, all the things that you're saying, I mean, we had a lot in common. You have I don't know how to say this nicely because you have a very strong personality.
Yeah. That's putting it nicely.
But I like somebody that knows what they want.
Or definitely don't want.
Or don't want. Yeah, I mean, just let me know. Like
I let you know plenty.
And you do let me know. And
no, I'm saying I let you know back then, and you still didn't listen.
Well, just because you didn't know. I knew what you wanted, but you didn't know. I was trying to help you.
But honestly, I think my personality type also is. I think I needed to be pursued. I think that was probably my jam.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't think that I would have been fine with like
you going gaga over somebody.
I don't think so. That's not really my jam.
That's interesting. So that's something we'll have to talk about later because there might be something there that needs to be
analyzed a little further.
Analyzed.
I love some word that I can't think of right now again.
You used it right though.
Self-analysis. No, self-analysis. That's what it is.
Is that the word you were looking for earlier?
Self-awareness is really
right.
Is really the overall.
And we are going to talk about self-awareness
in a different
maybe
episode.
In a different podcast. So let's go ahead and end it there. We'll take a little break, and when we come back, we will take a question from one of our listeners.
Welcome back to Building Aaronsburg. We are going to take a question from a listener. This listener asks, I do all of the apps, the dating apps. How do you find the right one? I'm 35 years old. How do I find the right one? You guys, you might be barking up the wrong tree asking us about dating apps.
Right.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'd be able to go to like a bar or the idea of entering back into a dating
I
world.
cannot imagine I was bad at dating to begin with.
Same.
I can't even imagine how bad I would be at that right now.
Yeah, I dated like 2 guys, not including you, in college, and I don't even know how that happened. Like, I am not gonna be at a bar. I was in college in
Right.
my dorm at 9 PM.
Go to bed early.
Yeah.
And now you throw kids into the equation. That's
Oh.
just I can't even imagine what that's like.
Anybody we just watched the movie for the second time, Date Night, last night. That is our life.
That is.
100%. Anyway, except we have 4 kids instead of just 2,
Right.
and not the crazy part of the story. Anyway, but to answer the question, I heard something really interesting the other day that I think is worth repeating. I listened to a podcast, the Scrubs Rewatch podcast with Zach Braff and Donald Faison, which has nothing to do with any of the stuff we're talking about, except for they kind of have this Q&A section at the end where they answer a listener's question that calls in. They actually talk to them on Zoom. And they mentioned something about dating, and they were older, and their parents were starting to get on them about not
Finding somebody.
not getting
Don't want to be
married.
lonely the
Yeah,
rest
they
of your
hadn't
life.
settled down.
Yep.
You know, they're in an area of the world or the United States that kind of expects that. And anyway, so of course they're telling them, like, don't be pressured. You know, you're not dead yet. You're 35 years old. It's not that
Right.
big, 37, whatever they were. But Zach brought up something that I thought was a really interesting point, and I'm kind of just repeating it because I'm not on dating apps, so I don't know. But in that dating app world, there's so many people on this app, on the there's multiple apps,
Right.
and the same people are on multiple apps, or some of them are
Right.
on some and not the others. But you tend to swipe left, swipe right, whatever it is, accept a date, and then you go out with this person, and there can be maybe like one small thing that kind of like eats at you a little bit, but it's not really a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But then you won't take a second date because you know that if you go back to the app, there's someone else there.
Right. That doesn't have that.
Well, that
whatever that is.
that you don't know of yet.
Right.
But then you take that person out and they've got something different.
Right.
It's like we've lost the ability to cope, or not cope, but what's the word? Like, I don't know what the word is for it. Basically, get along with other people and not be annoyed over some small thing that like kicks them out of possibly the rest of your life being good.
I think also that they worry that one small thing, well, that's going to end up being some nagging thing, and it's going to ruin our relationship because.
But what if it doesn't? So you're not willing to give
Right.
it a couple months? Like, it's like people just feel like they're burning time so fast that they can't even give it a couple months to even figure it out. Or
I think it also gets back to what we talked about earlier, is you have this idea of what the perfect partner is. They have to be X feet high and this type of body type with this kind of job that pays this kind of money and has this kind of background and these sort of, personal skills. And if they're missing one of those things, let's just go to the next guy.
But remember, self-analysis. You're not a 10 either.
Right.
None of us are 10s. We've all got faults and failures. We've all got addictions, or something. We've got something. Everyone has something. Don't you forget it. Don't let social media tell you otherwise. Everyone has a thing that to someone else would be considered undesirable, or that you don't like about yourself even.
Right.
That you don't want someone to find at fault with you. You're already hard enough on yourself about it. You don't want somebody else to pick on you about it too. So why not give someone else grace? Of course there's some things that are deal breaker type things.
Sure.
But in some of those things you can find out pretty quick. But I just found the point of, with dating apps and these days with dating, it's so much easier to just like next.
Right. Right. Especially because, I don't know how these dating apps work, but you could probably get 4 or 5 dates lined up pretty quickly, and you go to the first one and it's like, that person's got this imperfection. I know I have 3 more dates, 4 more dates set up. Let me just go to the next guy.
Yeah, which is interesting because people act like it's so limited, it's hard to get a date, whatever, but it seems easier than ever in some cases to just swipe left, or I don't even know which one's the accepting one, but swipe left or right and show up at a date. I have told you time and time again, even though you're making that crazy face right now, that I have built you a very fine personal profile through my social media. If I die, you're going to have a very long line of women out the door waiting to date you. You won't even have to try. You know why? because I promoted you on social media and how handy you are. And we've gotten to the age, we're 38, where women don't care about being tall and strappy anymore. They care about
you. They just want a good man.
They do. Times have changed.
He's a good man.
I was an old 80-year-old woman from day one, and I wanted a good man from the start. Well, except for that, like, flash in the pan where I wanted the strappy old. I wanted everything. You always want everything.
Nothing wrong with that.
Anyway. So that's it for our conversation on how we met, relationships, and all the things. If you guys want to follow us on social media, how can you get to us, Thomas?
You can reach out to us on our Insta at Building Aaronsburg. You can email us at buildingaaronsburg@gmail.com.
Facebook.
We are also on Facebook, Building Aaronsburg.
Yeah. And if you want to follow me, Catherine, on social media, you can follow me at Catherine Aaronsburg.
And that's probably the more interesting thing to follow for things because she posts so much. So you would probably get a lot out of that. But thank you for listening. Until next week, bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all. You said listeners. Good job.
I know.
Instead of viewers.
I work very hard at my craft.
It's your craft. The craft of podcasting.
It is a craft. Let's go. Keep going. You got it. You got it.
I have no more pursuance energy left.